Welcome to the Oh So Spurs podcast. Tottenham have finally announced the number 6, but is he the one you've all been asking for? I don't know, maybe he is. But alongside a licensed coach, JJ, we're going to discuss where he potentially fits in at Spurs under Thomas Frank. Does he make us better? Does he solve most of our midfield problems? How are you, JJ?
I'm good, Jim. Thanks for having me back.
Always great to have you on. I want to start with what kind of 6 he is. I think that's become the vogue term, right, as 6.
I mean, you can take it in loads of different ways in terms of when people have started now referring to positions by the number. It seems to be kind of very topical now for people to do that. At the end of the day, the way that each number behaves is going to be different depending on the system, the player, the manager and their style and what they want from that individual. So, yeah, it could be loads of different things, but in terms of the guy that we've just brought in, Palhinha, he is a very traditional kind of breakup player. So he's a central defensive midfielder. Whichever way you want to deploy him and wherever you want to deploy him in whatever system, his strengths lie with breaking up play and then laying the ball off simple to other players who do the playmaking side of things.
So he reminds me a bit of when Spurs signed Scott Parker or Victor Wanyama. It felt like we had a void in our midfield at those times as well, where I know he's not the type of player who's going to pick up the ball and progress it through the pitch. And people wanted that 6 who could do both. But hey, there's not many of those around, hence why clubs like Arsenal are willing to spend £100 million on Declan Rice, and an injury to Rodri can have a significant impact on Manchester City's season, despite having a very deep and strong squad all elsewhere across the pitch. Do you see it as more as that kind of mould that we saw from a Parker or a Wanyama, where he's going to win the ball and short, simple passes to his peers on the pitch?
Yeah, to a certain extent, I think he's got elements of both. Who he reminds me of a little bit is Wilson Palacios, for people that want to reach back to a Tottenham legend, fantastic player in his time. So what he's really there for and what he's really, really good at is he's extremely disciplined. He'll sit in the pocket and he effectively can sit in that position where you could almost call it like a single pivot position. So even if he's playing in a 2, and at the moment Thomas Frank is playing with 2 midfielders side by side, that double pivot, you will find that one of those is going to move forward, be a bit more advanced, a bit more progressive. And Palhinha, when he's playing and in the games that it suits him, is going to be the one that really sits. And he's going to move in quite a small box around the pitch most of the time. That doesn't mean that he's not good at putting out fires. He's really, really good at interceptions. So I went back and I was using the Y Scout tool to have a look through, all of his moments, good and bad, and over the last couple of years. And he will move out to the flanks. He will get into those wide areas. And I know a lot of people have criticised players like Bentancur for that, going out there and leaving us empty in the middle. But the difference being, if you are playing with a more orthodox double pivot, then you're very likely to have someone backing you up. So if you do feel that need during a transition, or you feel that need, that the greatest risk is to head out into the wide area and snuff something out. First of all, his reading of the game is really good. Second of all, his physicality is very good. And we are likely to have a system that allows for him to go and do that when he feels it's the right moment, because there's going to be somebody else that can then fill into that middle and sit in front of the back 4, 3, 2, whoever it might be. So from that perspective, I'm looking forward to seeing him break up play, and he loves a tackle. He loves a slide tackle. He's got more tackles than just about anyone anywhere in football at any level. He loves throwing himself on the floor. He's very physical in that way. And he's actually a lot bigger than I thought he was. So looking into his stats, I didn't quite realise that he was 6'3", because he's got quite a hunched over style and he doesn't look as big as he is when he's moving around the pitch. But the good thing about a defensive midfielder with long levers, he's got long legs, is that he can get around, he can reach his leg around a player, or he can get across a player. And it's why he's so good at interceptions and tackles. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, the whole signing's been met with mixed responses. Some people are saying we need that profile, exactly what you've described. And others said, no, I'm underwhelmed by this. But I think you've got to kind of look back 18 months and kind of look, is your perception dependent on overly influenced by his most recent stint at Bayern Munich, because he now feels like unwanted goods coming out on loan to us? Whereas when we were linked to him when he was at Fulham, there was a lot of excitement around the signing. And like you mentioned, Palacios, what a great comparison. Not the most glamorous signing, but he's added so much value to that midfield. And I feel like when you watch last season, if you can bear to sit through the 22 defeats again, go back and watch how many times we were dispossessed in the final third. And if you'd had a Paulinho on that team sheet, how often he would have been a valuable person to have on in preventing and helping prevent those counter-attacks from the opposition. Do you see him being valuable away games in particular against the big six? Because I stereotypically think those players are kind of really, that's where they show where you need them. It's not when you're desperately trying to break down a low block. It's when you are the low block and you're trying to keep those oppositions out.
Yeah, I think that's one way of looking at it. I think Thomas Frank is going to go with a couple of different options when we're playing against teams that are clearly superior than us in possession of the ball. But yeah, you can definitely see him being a very valuable player at stopping teams that want to transition quickly. He reads the play very well. It's one of the best aspects of his game, actually, is not the all action stuff. Is that, like I said, he's quite disciplined, but he gets out to where he needs to be. So he reads the play really well. So you can see against these teams that are going to have lots of possession of the ball, he could be a very valuable addition. He smells danger, and that's really important in a defensive player. And when I was looking through it as well, when you're going to be playing against top sides, he's very tenacious, and he's very tenacious in the duels, but he tends to always finish the action. And what I mean by that is that he either wins the ball, stops or breaks up play, knocks it into an awkward position that someone else then goes into a duel, or he commits a foul. So he very, very infrequently allows the action to continue, and that is going to be positive. It's going to be positive against transition sides, and that's not just the top sides, but that could be other sides who play in that way. We can think of Nottingham Forest, regardless of where they finished last season. We'd say that they're not a traditional top 16. And then, against those teams that you absolutely don't want them to get a flow and get a rhythm, he will finish an action when he gets into a duel with somebody. So he could be really valuable from that perspective.
Interesting. Well, I think he's going to add loads of value to the squad, and he's a fantastic addition. Do you think one other area I'd be interested to cover just before we finish off there is we're not going to have Kulusevski or Maddison for at least 6 months by the sounds of it. So other players are going to be asked to, unless we sign someone, I hope we do, push up and do more of the creative work. Does he allow us to, use other players differently? We obviously focus on what Paulinho can do, but does having him give Frank more tactical options to accommodate for those kind of troubles elsewhere on the pitch?
Yeah, you would hope so, right? You would hope that he provides the platform for others around him to have the security to go and play, go and make mistakes, go and be very creative, because he's, your first line of defense, trying to stop things coming back the other way. So if he gives confidence to other players, and if players see that he's out there, he's winning balls, he's shutting stuff down, then they are going to feel a lot more confident kind of taking their players on, whether that be in wide areas or in the number 10, the number 8, whatever it might be. He himself, and this is the flip side of it, this is not the, Paulinho's the greatest player in the world show. He has his limitations as a footballer. From everything that I've seen, and obviously from watching him live when he was at Fulham, he's not got a shot on him. He's got a terrible, terrible shooting record. He's very good in the air. He wins the ball in the air, and he scored a few headed goals, but you can't shoot. His long passing is average at best, and his long passing is really only on his open side, so on his right-footed side. When he passes across his body, like the big switch that Thomas Frank likes and is going to use a lot of, I'm not sure that Paulinho is going to be the best at deploying that. Can he free up the number 8? Can he free up the number 10? Can he free up the fullback to do the switching, to do that play? And his through passing is basically non-existent. You don't really see it from him. It's not what he's there to do. It doesn't mean he's a bad player. It doesn't mean he's a bad technician. You don't get to the Portuguese national team if you're not a good footballer. But that's not what he's in the side to do. He's there to give others the platform to play. And he's a profile that we don't really have. We don't really have another one of him. We've got loads of 8/10s. We've got loads of wingers and wide forwards and, these kind of loads of centre halves. We don't have a Paulinho. So from that perspective, I'm hoping he's going to be a really positive signing.
Well, there you have it. I think by the sounds of it, him and Pedro Porro could become very good friends for a number of reasons. Yeah, thanks so much as always, JJ. Excited to have João Paulinho joining Tottenham. Let's see how he gets on, and up the Spurs.
Come on, Tom.